You are looking at the south entrance of Fort Indiantown Gap National Military Reservation. Authorized in 1929, with the first land purchased in 1931, this area was used by the National Guard as early as 1932, and by 1940 it had been leased to the federal government as an Army cantonment. The total area is now more than 16,000 acres. While Fort Indiantown Gap is relatively quiet these days, it was a buzz of activity during World War II. Indiantown Gap derived its name for two reasons. One, it was a hubbub of activity for the Iroquois Indians for many years leading up to the 20th century. And two, this pronounced gap in the mountains sealed the name forever. During World War II, barracks, like those shown in the background, housed German prisoners of war. They were used by farmers throughout the Lebanon Valley and tilled the soil during the war. The farmers treated these German prisoners of war quite well. For decades afterwards, the Germans returned back to America with their spouses and visited the farms at which they worked. This World War II era M1 howitzer had a firing range of 23,700 meters. That's the equivalent of almost 15 miles. Fort Indiantown Gap was on Hitler's hit list. You can hear Indiantown Gap mentioned in a classic epic World War II movie entitled The Big Red One. The country of France was so appreciative for America's help in ridding their nation of the Nazi forces that they wanted to do something to show their appreciation. So what they did is they sent a gratitude train to the United States, which then consisted of just 48 states, plus Washington, D.C. In all, 49 boxcars like the one shown here were sent to Americans as a thank you. The Pennsylvania car is situated here at Fort Indiantown Gap. Let's go on a brief virtual tour of the Indiantown Gap National Cemetery. The National Cemetery is run by the Department of Veterans Affairs for the United States of America. Buried here are those who gave the ultimate sacrifice and died in defense of our country. Men and women from the United States Army, the Navy Marine Corps, the Navy, the United States Air Force, and also the U.S. Coast Guard, which was established in 1790. This is the Pennsylvania Veterans Memorial located at the Fort Indiantown Gap National Cemetery. Designed in the facade of a damaged French barn, the Veterans Memorial plays host to Memorial Day services and funeral services for men and women, thousands of whom served and perished and are interred here at Indiantown Gap's cemetery. There are as many as 20 to 30 burials per day here at the Indiantown Gap National Cemetery. At Fort Indiantown Gap National Cemetery, soldiers can be interred or buried, as can their spouses. This soldier served as a sergeant in the United States Air Force and was also a corporal in the United States Army. As you can see, he served in World War II and Korea and Vietnam.